academic competence and not effort. This is back when I first started teaching. Someone, one of my actually, he turned out to be one of my best students. Okay, but when he first took my class, he would come and argue for points, and he would say, "But I spent hours and hours studying for this class. I really deserve a better grade than this." And I said, "Well, but your grade depends on what you can demonstrate to me, not how much time you spent studying." Okay. So that's the whole point of this particular, sentence is it's based on what I can observe and not based on, how much time, people spend on this class. The second one, we can pretty much forget it because we won't have multiple choice questions in this class. The third one means, I have key indicators. I will publish the key indicators after the exam so you know exactly, what points are allocated where in the answers. Okay. There are no late submission for homework assignments. Any submission after the due date or time will not count. And Moodle would actually just block it too. People cannot turn it in after the submission time or after the due date, unless there's an excuse. Unless it's medical, jury duty, or military duty. Right. Number 6, helping a fellow student. Okay, first question is, what if someone walks up to you, a fellow classmate, says, "I don't understand tech at all. I don't get it." Okay, and here's a new homework assignment. I don't know how to do it. What would you do? Get lost, right? I don't want to help you. Well, most people agree that helping another fellow student, if you do it the right way, you gain a better understanding of the material. Okay, anyone who is helping somebody else, as long as it's done the right way, will gain a better understanding of the material. So, it is still up to you to decide whether to help the other student or not. But the big question is, how would you help the other student? Okay, the first approach is, I don't have time to explain it to you. Here's my answer, just copy it. Okay, would that be a good thing or a bad thing? Bad thing, because in that case, the person, now it depends on the other person too. Some people would not take it just like that and say, okay, here's your answer, but I don't understand how you got to that answer. Can you explain to me how you get from this step to this step? Now that would be okay, but it depends on the person who's asking for help to, for the explanation. The best way to help out a fellow student is to explain the class material in a way that it can be applied to the homework assignment, but without using the homework assignment to illustrate those concepts. So you have to find some other examples to illustrate the same concept so the other person who's asking for help can understand the concept and apply it to the homework assignment. Okay? Any questions about that? Kind of goes back to the to the story about a person who's really starving, and if you walk by, and give that person, some fish from the bucket, it can help that person only that one time. But if you teach that person how to fish, that person will, then have a way to make a living, because that person knows how to fish. There's actually a humorous alternative version of that story too. I'll let you guys look it up on the internet. It's pretty funny. Involves beer and stuff like that. Yep. Yep. Something like that. These other two slides, basically just talks about, I cannot. Okay, let me just explain the origin of these, two slides, 6.3 and 6.4. Oh, 6.2 and 6.3. That has to do with one semester. I had a student who was copying from somebody else, during the exams, and I found, pretty much hard evidence of that happening. Okay, and the person came back to me and said, well, you cannot give me a D, in this class because I need the financial aid. And I also signed up for the class after this one, which is cisp300 already. So if you give me a D this semester, first, I will lose my financial aid, and then 2, I would not be able to move on to cisp300. And then I said, well, I don't have a choice, because you're copying the answers from somebody else during the exams, not just 1 but 2. So according to the syllabus, you're getting a 0 out of this whole thing. I cannot, do anything else. If that ends up, if you end up getting a D, I cannot change that grade. So that person pretty much, ended up with, a D, at the end of the semester. Not very happy about it, but, I couldn't really do anything differently in that case. Study habit. Let's see. First, come to the classes. I know sometimes, it can be very boring and you don't want to be here. You have other things that you want to go, you want to do. But come here anyway, because sometimes I talk about things in the class that you might find helpful. And what about the screen recording? I can just watch the screen recording, right? What is the difference between watching screen recording versus in the class? Yep.
Can't ask questions.
Cannot easily ask questions interactively. If you watch screen recording, yes, you can send an email to me and say at 40 minutes and 50 seconds of the video, you talked about this. I have some question about it. Then I have to go to the video, go to that spot, figure out what I said, and then come back and forth. It's not nearly as effective as people asking questions in the class during the discussion of the topic, because I can just stop and then find a different way to explain the same thing during the class. Reading what I will be covering before a lecture will be helpful. The first lecture is kind of an exception to the rule, but for the most part, I will tell you guys, where I am in terms of the lecture material is on the website. So you really want to read ahead of me just a little bit, so that you have an idea of what I will be talking about before I talk about it. So that really helps too. Study again after a lecture. Revisit the topics and the concepts that we talk about in the class. That is really helpful. Start on homework assignments as soon as possible. Do not procrastinate. I have to tell myself that too. Do not procrastinate. But it really helps to get started early. Study my solution, especially if I write down as comments to your homework assignment, study my solution. That usually means that person's submission is not close to the answer. So the best way I can do it is to say, okay, you might want to just study the way I did it in class and in my own solution. So that's the reason why I said this. Okay, study my solution when it's not even close. Alright. And the last one is really just a tentative schedule of the topics of this class. It's fairly accurate for the most part, but sometimes, I may be a little bit off from the schedule. So don't worry too much if I'm, a little bit off from the schedule. I'm just checking the recorder. All right. Next thing you want to do, well, I think I'll do this part later, after the class has settled in a little bit. Before we go any further, let me do a little head count here of how many people are missing. Okay, who is enrolled in this class and did not have a chance to sign on the roll sheet? You want to come in and okay, there are 2. Okay, I'll just count how many. 3. Are you in the class on the roster?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Scratching my head.
Oh, okay. I thought you were. Okay, so there are 2 people. So let me just count the number of spots that are open right now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we got 5 spots open, but since 2 people did not have a chance to write their name because they're standing outside the classroom right now, so we only have 3 open spots right now. So if you're within the first 3, okay, 1 person on the wait list did not show up. So I will just pronounce the last names of people on the wait list that I can add at the end of today. First one is Williams. First name is Christopher. Second one is Ramirez. First name is Jeremiah. And the third one is Love Alexander. So those are the 3 people who I can add to the class today. Okay. The rest of you on the wait list, which is a whole lot, I cannot add anyone on Thursday because I need 2 absences to drop someone from the class. So the next time I can drop someone from the class will be next Tuesday. So if you're on the wait list, you kind of have to keep coming, because if you stop coming, you will lose your spot on the wait list. Okay? I cannot guarantee that everyone on the wait list can be added to this class. Based on my previous experience with this class, people tend not to drop from this class. Okay? People who are in the class are very committed usually, and they just they will just complete the class and not drop from the class. Okay, any questions about getting into the class, enrollment, and stuff like that? No questions? Okay. All right. So I'm gonna skip this part first. I received and read the syllabus because I want the class to settle down first before I do that particular activity. And what I want to do next is to refer to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Well, let me ask you a question first before we talk about this part. Why are you here? Okay, I'll give you several choices because open-ended questions are not easy to answer, right? Okay, one, you need to take cisp 360. How many people are here because you need to take cisp 360? All of you, very good, because that's the only reason why people would take this class. Two, okay, how many people are after the computer science degree, and that's why you want to take cisp 360? You have about, I would say about half of the class. What about the other half? Are you in math? Math major? Engineering major? Okay.
Web development.
Sorry?
Web development.
Web development, okay. Now, why do you think web development has anything to do with this class?
I don't know. It's on.
If you're in web development, okay, go ahead.
Java.
Scripting, okay. If you're into scripting, web scripting,
Yes.
web scripting is a form of programming. So most of the concepts that we talk about in this class directly apply to web scripting, just like any type of programming. So this class is not specific to C++, which most people here are really after, is to program in C++. But the concepts apply easily to PHP, Perl, Python, just about any programming language. So that's why I'm hoping that this class will prove to be helpful to you, in the web class. For those of you who are in math, why do you think this is a required? Why do you think cisp 360 is a required class for your degree? Math and programming, they don't seem to relate. Or do they? Are they related? What do you think you'll be doing as a math major after you graduate? Well, I mean, that's a really important question, right? I mean, what kind of career, what kind of job will you have as a math major? I'll be a teacher, right? Well, there are not too many jobs for teachers. Sorry?
Stock market analysis.
Stock market analysis. That's a big, huge area that requires applied math majors who know how to write programs, or at least understand programming.
Because there were a few algorithms back in the 1980s that were written to destroy the stock market.